The emergency room doors slid open with a hydraulic hiss as Nicholas Reed strode through them, his Italian leather shoes clicking against the polished hospital floor. The call had come during the middle of a board meeting. His CFO, Walter, had suffered a heart attack. At 45, Nicholas was accustomed to commanding rooms, not rushing anxiously through them. His tall frame and perfectly tailored charcoal suit drew the eyes of waiting patients as he approached the reception desk, loosening his burgundy tie with one hand. "I'm here for Walter Brennan," Nicholas announced, his deep voice carrying the authority that had helped build Reed Enterprises into a multi-billion-dollar tech investment firm. The receptionist looked up, recognition flickering across her face. "Mr. Reed, yes, Mr. Brennan is in treatment room 4. The doctor is with him now." She gestured toward a corridor to the right. "Family only, but I'm sure they'll make an exception for you." Nicholas nodded curtly, already moving toward the corridor. Walter had been with him from the beginning. When Reed Enterprises was nothing more than an ambitious idea in a rented office space, more than just his CFO, Walter was the closest thing Nicholas had to family these days. The hospital buzzed with activity around him, nurses checking charts, doctors consulting in hushed tones, the occasional beep of medical equipment. Nicholas had always hated hospitals. They reminded him of loss and vulnerability, two things he'd worked hard to eliminate from his life. As he turned the corner toward treatment room 4, his gaze drifted through the half-open door of treatment room 2. Nicholas froze mid-step. Sitting on the edge of an examination table was a woman whose profile he would recognize anywhere. Her honey-blonde hair was shorter now, falling just below her shoulders, instead of the waist-length style she'd worn during their marriage. Even in the unflattering fluorescent light, Amanda's face maintained the gentle curve of cheekbone and determined chin that had captivated him 12 years ago. 5 years had passed since their divorce was finalized. 5 years since he'd seen her walk out of the courtroom with dry eyes and her head held high. The sight of her now sent an unexpected jolt through his chest, but it wasn't Amanda alone that made Nicholas's heart stutter in his chest. Standing beside her, clinging to her hand, was a small boy with tousled dark hair. A boy around 4 years old. A boy with a distinctive cleft in his chin, identical to Nicholas's own. The child turned his head, and Nicholas felt the ground shift beneath him. Those eyes, impossibly familiar, the same unusual shade of grey-blue that looked back at him from his mirror every morning. The boy's face was pale, a small bandage covering his forehead, dried tear tracks still visible on his cheeks. "Mr. Reed," a nurse touched his elbow, startling him. "Mr. Brennan is asking for you." Nicholas blinked, tearing his gaze away from the treatment room. Yes, of course." He forced himself to continue down the hallway, his mind racing. Amanda had never mentioned a child, not during the divorce proceedings, not in any of the sparse communication they'd had afterward. The timing. The boy appeared to be 4, maybe almost 5. Their marriage had ended 5 years ago, but they'd been separated for months before that. The final breakdown had come after years of growing apart, of Nicholas working 16-hour days, building his empire, while Amanda grew increasingly distant. The last straw had been the miscarriage, their third. The loss had hollowed Amanda out, while Nicholas had retreated further into his work, unable to face the grief. Walter was propped up in bed when Nicholas entered treatment room 4, looking smaller and paler than Nicholas had ever seen him. Wires connected him to various monitors, but he managed a weak smile. "Dramatic way to get out of a budget meeting, isn't it?" Walter joked, his voice raspy. Nicholas forced a smile, moving to his friend's bedside. "How are you feeling?" "Like an elephant is sitting on my chest. Doctor says it was a mild heart attack. They're keeping me overnight for observation." Nicholas nodded, but his thoughts kept drifting to the boy in the next room. Amanda's son. Could he possibly be? "You look like you've seen a ghost," Walter commented, studying Nicholas's face. Nicholas hesitated. "Amanda is here, in the next room." Walter's eyebrows shot up. "Amanda? You're Amanda? She's with a child. A boy." Nicholas's voice dropped. "He looks like me, Walter." Understanding dawned on Walter's face. "How old?" 4, maybe 5. Walter let out a long breath. "Jesus, Nick." The doctor entered then, clipboard in hand, temporarily postponing the conversation. Nicholas listened to the medical explanation, minor cardiac event, need for lifestyle changes, medication regimen, while part of his mind remained fixated on the treatment room next door. After assuring Walter he would return the following day, Nicholas stepped back into the hallway. He stood there for a moment, torn between walking away and confronting the situation head-on. Nicholas Reed had not built a billion-dollar company by avoiding difficult situations. He approached treatment room 2, where a doctor was just exiting. "Just a mild concussion," the doctor was saying to Amanda. "Keep him awake for the next few hours, then wake him every 2 hours through the night. Any vomiting, unusual drowsiness, or severe pain, bring him back immediately." Amanda nodded, her attention focused on the boy, who now had a larger bandage wrapped around his head. "Thank you, doctor." Nicholas stepped into the doorway as the doctor left. For a moment, Amanda didn't notice him, busy gathering the child's jacket and her purse. When she looked up, her body went rigid. Nicholas. His name fell from her lips like something dropped by accident. "Amanda." He nodded, then let his gaze drift to the boy. "I didn't know you had a son." Something flashed in her eyes. Fear? Defiance? "This is Lucas. He fell off the playground equipment at school today." Lucas looked up at Nicholas with curious eyes. "My head hurts," he announced matter-of-factly. "I'm sorry to hear that," Nicholas replied automatically, unable to tear his gaze from the boy's face. The resemblance was undeniable. The shape of his eyes, the cleft chin, even the serious set of his mouth. "We need to go," Amanda said, helping Lucas off the examination table. "It's good to see you, Nicholas. I hope your friend is okay." She had noticed which room he'd come from. "Walter had a mild heart attack. He'll be fine." Nicholas stepped aside but didn't leave. "Amanda, we need to talk." She hesitated, one hand protectively on Lucas's shoulder. "Not now. Lucas needs to rest." "Is he mine?" The words escaped before Nicholas could consider their impact, hanging in the sterile hospital air between them. Amanda's face paled, her knuckles whitening as she gripped her purse strap. Lucas looked between the adults, sensing the sudden tension. "Mommy, who's that man?" Lucas asked, tugging at Amanda's sleeve. "Dan, old friend," she answered quickly. "Nicholas, please." "My card." Nicholas pulled a business card from his wallet and held it out. "My personal cell is on the back. Call me. Tonight." Amanda hesitated before taking the card, slipping it into her purse without looking at it. "I need to get Lucas home." Nicholas nodded, stepping back to allow them to pass. As they walked away down the corridor, Lucas glanced back over his shoulder, his grey-blue eyes, Nicholas's eyes, curious and questioning. Standing alone in the treatment room, Nicholas felt as though his carefully controlled world had just been turned inside out. The possibility that he had a son, a child he'd known nothing about for nearly 5 years, was almost incomprehensible. Yet the evidence had just walked past him, wearing light-up sneakers and a Spider-Man t-shirt. His phone buzzed with a message from his assistant. "Conference call with Tokyo in 30 minutes, urgent." Nicholas stared at the screen, the mundane reminder of his ordered life suddenly seeming trivial. For the first time in 5 years, Reed Enterprises wasn't the most important thing in Nicholas Reed's world. The penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park had never felt emptier than it did that night. Nicholas stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, tumbler of scotch untouched in his hand, as he stared at the city lights below. His reflection gazed back at him, successful, powerful, and utterly alone. After leaving the hospital, he'd cancelled the Tokyo call, something he couldn't remember ever doing before. "Family emergency," he'd told his bewildered assistant, the unfamiliar words feeling strange on his tongue. The grandfather clock in the foyer chimed 11, and Nicholas checked his phone again. No calls from unknown numbers, no messages. He'd left the hospital 3 hours ago, and Amanda had still not contacted him. He pulled up his browser and typed Amanda Reed into the search bar, then paused and deleted it. She wouldn't be using his name anymore. He tried Amanda Winters, her maiden name, but the results were too numerous and generic to be useful. Frustrated, he called the one person who might know something. "Do you have any idea what time it is?" Diane Taylor answered, her voice thick with sleep. "I need information about Amanda," Nicholas said without preamble. A pause. "Amanda? Your ex-wife, Amanda? The woman whose name you haven't mentioned in 5 years?" Diane had been Reed Enterprises' head of legal for a decade. She'd handled his divorce and remained one of the few people who could speak to him so bluntly. "I saw her today. At the hospital with Walter," She had a child with her, a boy. The silence on the other end of the line stretched long enough that Nicholas checked to make sure the call hadn't dropped. "Diane?" "I'm processing," she replied. Then, more cautiously, "How old?" "4, maybe 5. Another weighted silence. "And you think—" "He has my eyes, Diane, my chin. He looks exactly like the pictures my mother used to show me of myself at that age." "Nicholas?" Diane's voice softened in a way he rarely heard. If Amanda had been pregnant during the divorce, it would have come up. It would have changed everything about the proceedings. "Unless she didn't tell anyone," Nicholas countered. "She was barely showing when we separated. If she found out after you told her you never wanted to try for another child, after you threw yourself into work instead of grieving together?" Diane's words were sharp, but not unkind. A simple recitation of facts he'd shared during late nights at the office when the divorce was still fresh. Nicholas took a long swallow of his scotch. "I need to know if he's mine, and if he is." "What then, Nicholas? You've built your life around your company. There's no room for bedtime stories and soccer practice." The question hit him harder than expected. What would he do with the child? His own father had been absent at best, abusive at worst. The pattern had been one of the many fears that had paralyzed him after the miscarriages. Fear that he wouldn't know how to be the father he'd never had. "I don't know," he admitted, "but I can't just pretend I never saw him." Diane sighed. "I'll see what I can find out. But Nicholas, tread carefully. Whatever happened, Amanda had her reasons." After hanging up, Nicholas wandered through his pristine apartment. He rarely spent time in most of the rooms. The home theater hadn't been used in months. The gourmet kitchen was immaculate because he almost never cooked. The guest rooms remained perpetually ready for visitors who never came. He stopped at his home office, where a single framed photograph sat on the otherwise minimalist desk. Nicholas and Amanda on their wedding day, her in a simple white dress, him looking younger and happier than he could remember being. It was the only personal item in the entire apartment. His phone buzzed with an incoming text from an unknown number. "Lucas is asleep. I'm monitoring him for the concussion. We can talk tomorrow. Meet me at Riverside Park, near the 79th Street playground, 10 a.m. Nicholas read the message twice, then typed a simple reply. "I'll be there." Sleep proved elusive that night. Nicholas lay awake, memories flooding back. Memories he'd locked away for 5 years. Meeting Amanda at a charity gala when his company was still a promising startup. Her laugh when he'd nervously spilled champagne on her dress. How she'd believed in him during the early years, working as a teacher to support them while he built the company. The joy on her face when she'd first told him she was pregnant, and the devastating grief that followed each loss. By their 3rd miscarriage, something had broken between them. Amanda had wanted to try again, or consider adoption. Nicholas had retreated into work, unable to face another loss, terrified of his own inadequacy. The more Amanda had reached for him, the further he'd pulled away. When morning finally came, Nicholas dressed with unusual indecision. His closet full of tailored suits suddenly seemed inappropriate. He eventually settled on dark jeans and a cashmere sweater, still expensive but less formal. The autumn air was crisp as he walked through Riverside Park. Fallen leaves crunched underfoot, and the Hudson River gleamed in the morning sunlight. Nicholas spotted her from a distance. Amanda sat on a bench watching Lucas, who was carefully collecting colorful leaves from the ground. She wore a simple burgundy coat, her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail. As Nicholas approached, he was struck by how little she'd changed and how much. The soft curves of her face had sharpened slightly with maturity, and there was a confidence in her posture that hadn't been there before. "Mommy, look at this one. It's red and yellow," Lucas exclaimed, holding up a maple leaf for inspection. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Amanda replied, then tensed as she noticed Nicholas approaching. Lucas followed her gaze, his eyes widening with recognition. "It's the man from the doctor place," he announced. Nicholas stopped a few feet away, suddenly uncertain. "Good morning." Amanda stood, smoothing her coat. "Lucas, can you keep finding the most colorful leaves? I need to talk to Mr. Reed for a few minutes." "Is he your friend?" Lucas asked, studying Nicholas with undisguised curiosity. "Yes," Amanda answered after a moment's hesitation. "An old friend." Lucas seemed to accept this, returning to his leaf collection but glancing up occasionally at Nicholas. "He seems to be feeling better," Nicholas observed, as Amanda led him to a bench a short distance away. still within sight of Lucas. "Children are resilient." She sat down, hands folded tightly in her lap. "He has a hard head." "Like his father?" Nicholas asked quietly. Amanda closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they held a mixture of resignation and determination. "Yes." Like his father. The confirmation, though expected, still hit Nicholas like a physical blow. "Why didn't you tell me?" "When should I have told you, Nicholas? When you were telling me you couldn't handle another loss? When you were working 20-hour days to avoid coming home? Or maybe during the divorce, when you made it abundantly clear that your company was the only thing that mattered to you?" Her words weren't angry, just tired, as if she'd rehearsed this conversation in her head many times. "I had a right to know," Nicholas insisted. "Yes, you probably did," Amanda conceded. "But I also had a right to protect my child from being another disappointment in your life." The statement stung with its accuracy. "How did you keep it from everyone? The lawyers, the court? I was barely showing when we separated. By the time the divorce was finalized, I'd moved to Boston to stay with my sister. New city, new doctor, new life." She watched Lucas as she spoke, her expression softening. The pregnancy was high risk after the previous miscarriages. The doctors weren't sure Lucas would make it to term. "I didn't want to use him as leverage in the divorce or get your hopes up for another child we might lose." Nicholas absorbed this, watching Lucas methodically arranging his leaf collection by color. "And after he was born? When he was healthy?" Amanda turned to face him directly. "You had made your choice, Nicholas. You chose Reed Enterprises over our marriage, over the possibility of a family. I watched what each loss did to you, how you retreated further every time. I couldn't bear to watch you keep Lucas at arm's length too, waiting for something to go wrong." The accusation was fair, but Nicholas felt a surge of anger nonetheless. "So you decided for me. You took away my chance to know my son." "I did what I thought was best for Lucas," Amanda replied firmly. "And if you're honest with yourself, you know you weren't ready to be a father then. Are you even ready now?" The question hung between them, challenging and unavoidable. The question lingered unanswered as a gust of wind scattered Lucas's carefully arranged leaf collection. The boy gave a distressed cry, rushing to recapture his treasures. "I can help," Nicholas said, standing up instinctively. He glanced at Amanda, who nodded her permission. Kneeling beside Lucas, Nicholas began gathering the scattered leaves. "Which pile does this one go in?" he asked, holding up a vibrant red maple leaf. Lucas considered it seriously. "That's a red one. Red pile is over there." He pointed to a small collection of crimson leaves. Nicholas placed it carefully with the others. "You're very organized." "Mummy says organization is important," Lucas replied matter-of-factly. "She's a teacher and has to keep everything in the right place." "Your mom was always good at keeping things in order," Nicholas agreed, remembering how Amanda had once reorganized his entire home office, creating a system he still used at work. They continued collecting leaves in companionable silence until Lucas looked up at him with those eerily familiar grey-blue eyes. "Why haven't I seen you before if you're Mommy's friend?" Nicholas hesitated, looking to Amanda, who had approached them. "Well, I've been away for a long time." "On a trip?" Lucas asked. "Something like that," Nicholas replied. Amanda intervened. "Lucas, sweetie, why don't you take your leaves over to that bench and sort them again? I need to finish talking with Mr. Reed." Once Lucas was settled again, Amanda turned to Nicholas. "He's curious by nature, always asking questions. He seems intelligent," Nicholas observed, unable to keep the pride from his voice. "He is," Amanda confirmed. "His teachers say he's reading at a third-grade level already." She hesitated. "He gets that from you, the quick learning, the focus." Nicholas felt a strange warmth at the comparison. "What happens now, Amanda?" She sighed, watching Lucas, who was meticulously reorganizing his collection. "I don't know. I never planned for this scenario. I want to be part of his life," Nicholas stated firmly. "You want that now, standing in this park on a beautiful fall morning," Amanda countered. "But what about next week when markets crash in Asia, or when a competitor threatens your latest acquisition? What happens to Lucas then?" The accusation stung because of its accuracy. Nicholas had always prioritized work in their marriage, especially when emotional complications arose. It was his refuge, his area of complete control. "I've changed," he said. Amanda's expression was skeptical. "Have you? Really? When's the last time you took a weekend off or a vacation? When's the last time anything or anyone was more important than Reed Enterprises?" Nicholas opened his mouth to argue but stopped himself. When had anything taken precedence over work in the past 5 years? "I understand your concerns," he said instead, "but he's my son. I deserve a chance to know him." "And what does Lucas deserve?" Amanda challenged. "A father who drops in when it's convenient and disappears when work calls. Because that's what destroyed us, Nicholas. Your inability to put family first." Before Nicholas could respond, his phone rang. The screen displayed Walter Hospital. He hesitated, finger hovering over the decline button. "Go ahead," Amanda said, noticing his dilemma. "Old habits die hard," Nicholas answered, turning slightly away. "Walter, how are you feeling?" "Better," his CFO replied. "But that's not why I'm calling. The Miyazaki deal is imploding. They heard about my heart attack and they're getting cold feet, wondering if Reed Enterprises is stable enough for the merger." Nicholas felt the familiar pull of business crisis. "Have Allison draft a press release about your condition being minor. I'll call Miyazaki myself this afternoon. They want to meet in person. Their plane lands at noon." Nicholas glanced at Amanda and Lucas. "I'm in the middle of something important. $30 billion important," Walter pressed, "because that's what we stand to lose if they walk." The old Nicholas would have already been calling for his car. But now, watching Lucas carefully placing a yellow leaf in his collection, he felt torn in a way he never had before. "I'll call you back in 5 minutes," he told Walter before hanging up. Amanda was watching him with a knowing expression. "Let me guess. Crisis at work?" "Yes," he admitted. "But, go," she said, her voice resigned. "This is exactly what I was talking about, Nicholas. Some things never change." "This isn't the same," Nicholas insisted. "I just found out about Lucas yesterday. You can't expect me to completely reorganize my life overnight." "I don't," Amanda replied, "but Lucas needs consistency, not a father who appears and disappears based on his work schedule." She pulled a small notebook from her purse, jotted something down, and handed him the page. "This is my address and home phone. When you've decided if you're truly ready to be a father, not just when it's convenient, call me." Nicholas took the paper. "I want to see him again." "Prove it," she challenged. "Show me you can make space in your life for him." Nicholas pocketed the paper and approached Lucas, kneeling to eye level. "I have to go now, Lucas, but it was nice meeting you." Lucas looked up. "Are you coming back?" The question was innocent but weighted with implications Nicholas couldn't possibly explain to a 4-year-old. "I'd like to," he answered honestly. "Okay," Lucas said easily, offering Nicholas a red-orange leaf. "You can have this one, it's the best one." Nicholas accepted the gift with surprising emotion tightening his throat. "Thank you. I'll keep it safe." As he walked away, Nicholas heard Lucas ask Amanda, "Mommy, why does that man look like me?" The Miyazaki meeting stretched into evening, with Nicholas operating on autopilot. His mind kept drifting to the park, to Lucas and his serious expressions, to the leaf now carefully preserved between the pages of his planner. The Japanese executives finally seemed reassured about Walter's health and the stability of Reed Enterprises, signing the preliminary merger agreement just after 7. When Nicholas finally returned to his penthouse that night, the emptiness struck him anew. He wandered from room to room, seeing the space through different eyes. The glass coffee table with sharp corners, the absence of anything colorful or playful, the pristine white furniture that would show every smudge from small hands. It was a home designed for a solitary businessman, not for a child's visits. His housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, found him sitting in the dark living room. "Mr. Reed, I was just leaving. Do you need anything?" Nicholas looked up. "Mrs. Chen, do you have grandchildren?" Surprised by the question, she nodded. 3 boys. "What would this place need to be child-friendly?" Mrs. Chen's eyebrows rose. "Child-friendly, sir?" Nicholas stood, suddenly energized. "Yes, if a young boy, around 4, were to visit, what would make this place more welcoming for him?" Understanding dawned on Mrs. Chen's face. "Well, those glass tables would need to go. And perhaps some toys, books, a room that's his own with bright colors?" Nicholas nodded, mind racing. "Could you help with that? Find someone who could make those changes? Money is no object." "Of course, Mr. Reed. May I ask?" "I have a son," Nicholas said, the words still strange on his tongue. "I just found out." Mrs. Chen's expression softened. "Congratulations, sir. Children are a blessing." After she left, Nicholas called Diane. "Please tell me you didn't antagonize her," Diane said by way of greeting. "I met him," Nicholas replied. We talked. The Miyazaki crisis interrupted, but I'm going to see them again. So it's true. The boy is yours? Yes. His name is Lucas. He's 4 years old and collects leaves by color. Diane was quiet for a moment. Nicholas, have you considered what this means legally? Custody arrangements, child support, paternity tests? Stop, Nicholas interrupted. I don't want to approach this like a business transaction or legal proceeding. Amanda has valid concerns about my ability to be present in Lucas's life. I need to prove to her, and myself, that I can do this before involving lawyers. That doesn't sound like the Nicholas Reed I know, Diane said carefully. Maybe he needed to meet his son, Nicholas replied. The next morning, Nicholas woke early and made an unexpected decision. Instead of heading to the office, he directed his driver to Boston. The 3-hour drive gave him time to think, to plan his approach. He had Amanda's address, but showing up unannounced felt intrusive. Instead, he called her from the road. Nicholas, her voice carried surprise. I didn't expect to hear from you so soon. The Miyazaki situation is handled, he said. I'm actually on my way to Boston now. A long pause. Today, I want to show you I'm serious, Amanda. No lawyers, no custody battles, just a chance to know my son. He has school until 3, Amanda said after a moment, and I have classes until 4. I'm teaching at Brighton Elementary now. I'll wait, Nicholas replied simply. Text me the school address, I'll meet you there. The elementary school was a brick building with colorful murals decorating the exterior. Nicholas arrived early, watching parents begin to gather outside. He felt conspicuously out of place in his tailored suit among the casual clothing of the waiting parents. At precisely 3:30, children began streaming out of the building. Nicholas scanned the crowd anxiously until he spotted Lucas, backpack nearly as large as he was, walking beside a young woman who must have been his after-school supervisor. Then, Nicholas saw something that stopped his heart. Following a few paces behind Lucas was a tall man in a teacher's casual attire, talking animatedly with Amanda. She laughed at something he said, her expression relaxed and happy. The man placed a familiar hand at the small of her back as they walked. The realization hit Nicholas with unexpected force. Of course Amanda would have moved on. It had been 5 years. She had built a new life. A life that apparently included this man who looked completely at ease with both Amanda and Lucas, who now ran up to the man excitedly showing him something from his backpack. Nicholas watched as the man knelt to Lucas's level, giving the boy his complete attention. It was a simple gesture, but it revealed volumes about their relationship. For the first time, Nicholas faced the complicated reality of the situation. He wasn't just re-entering Amanda's life. He was disrupting a family unit that seemed to be functioning perfectly well without him. Nicholas sat frozen in his parked car, watching the scene unfold. The man ruffled Lucas's hair affectionately before standing to speak with Amanda. Whatever he said made her smile, that genuine smile that had once been reserved for Nicholas. His chest tightened with an emotion he hadn't anticipated, jealousy. His phone buzzed with Amanda's text. We're heading home now, you can meet us there. Nicholas hesitated, then typed back. Who is the man with you? Several minutes passed before her reply came. Daniel. He teaches 5th grade. We've been dating for almost 2 years. The confirmation of what he'd witnessed sent another wave of complicated emotions through Nicholas. In his mind, he'd imagined reconnecting with Lucas meant reconnecting with the life he'd left behind. The reality that Amanda had built something new without him hadn't fully registered until this moment. I'll be there in 30 minutes, he finally replied. Amanda's home was a charming Victorian in a tree-lined neighborhood of Boston. Full decorations adorned the porch, and a child's bicycle lay on its side in the front yard. It was warm, lived in, completely unlike his sterile penthouse. Nicholas rang the doorbell, straightening his tie nervously. Amanda opened the door, having changed from her work clothes into jeans and a soft sweater. Come in, she said, stepping aside. Lucas is having a snack in the kitchen. The interior was just as welcoming as the exterior. Walls painted in warm colors, photographs everywhere, toys organized in baskets. It looked like a home from a magazine spread on family living. Lucas sat at the kitchen table, munching apple slices and drawing with colored pencils. He looked up as Nicholas entered, recognition lighting his face. Hi, you came back? Lucas exclaimed, as though Nicholas's appearance was the most natural thing in the world. Do you want to see my drawing? I'd like that very much, Nicholas replied, moving to sit at the table. Lucas pushed his drawing across the table, a surprisingly detailed rendering of the park where they'd met, complete with colourful fall leaves scattered across the page. "This is amazing," Nicholas said sincerely. "You're quite the artist." "Mommy says I get it from her," Lucas announced proudly. Amanda smiled softly from where she stood by the counter. "I used to paint before teaching took over my life." "I remember," Nicholas said. "You painted that sunset in Montauk that used to hang in our dining room." An awkward silence fell at the reference to their shared past. Amanda broke it by offering Nicholas coffee, which he accepted gratefully. "Lucas, why don't you go play in your room for a bit while I talk to Mr. Reed?" Amanda suggested. "Can I show him my room first?" Lucas asked eagerly. Amanda hesitated, then nodded. "Just for a few minutes." Lucas jumped up from his chair, grabbing Nicholas's hand without hesitation. "Come on, I have a dinosaur collection." The simple touch of his son's small hand in his own sent a surge of emotion through Nicholas. He allowed himself to be led down the hallway to a room painted sky blue with stars on the ceiling. Dinosaur figures lined shelves, books filled a small bookcase, and a twin bed with a space-themed comforter sat against one wall. "This is T-Rex. He's the king," Lucas explained, handing Nicholas a plastic dinosaur. "And this is Triceratops. He's my favorite because he has 3 horns and can defend himself." Nicholas listened attentively as Lucas named each dinosaur, explaining their characteristics with surprising knowledge for a 4-year-old. There was something familiar in the boy's methodical explanations, the same precision Nicholas brought to his business analyses. "Whose pictures are these?" Nicholas asked, noticing several framed photos on Lucas's dresser. "That's me and Mommy at the aquarium," Lucas pointed. "That's Grandma and Grandpa. They live in Florida now. And that's me and Daniel making a snowman last winter." Nicholas picked up the last photo, Lucas sitting atop the man's shoulders, both grinning widely as they stood beside a snowman. "Do you like Daniel?" Nicholas asked carefully. Lucas nodded enthusiastically. "He's super fun. He teaches me baseball and reads me stories with all the funny voices, and he makes Mommy laugh a lot." The simple observation stung more than Nicholas expected. When was the last time he'd made Amanda laugh? "Lucas," Amanda called from the doorway, "time to let me talk to Mr. Reed now. How about you build that new Lego set Daniel gave you?" After Lucas was settled with his Legos, Amanda led Nicholas to the living room. They sat at opposite ends of the sofa, the distance between them symbolic of the years that had passed. "Your home is lovely," Nicholas said, "very different from our place in Manhattan." "That's intentional," Amanda admitted. "After the divorce, I needed something completely different, something that was just mine." She paused. "Ours, once Lucas was born." Nicholas nodded, gathering his courage. "Tell me about Daniel." Amanda looked surprised by the direct question. "We met at school. He's kind, patient, great with Lucas." She hesitated. "He's asked me to marry him." The revelation hit Nicholas harder than expected. "Have you said yes?" "Not yet," Amanda replied, watching his reaction carefully. "It's complicated. Especially now with you knowing about Lucas." Nicholas leaned forward. "Amanda, I want to be clear about something. I'm not here to disrupt your life or try to win you back. But Lucas is my son, and I want the chance to know him." She studied him for a long moment. "The Nicholas I knew would have immediately called his lawyers and demanded custody arrangements. I'm not that man anymore," Nicholas insisted. "At least I'm trying not to be." "What changed?" Amanda asked skeptically. Nicholas took out his wallet and carefully removed the leaf Lucas had given him, now pressed flat and preserved. "This changed me. Seeing him, talking to him, it put everything into perspective." Amanda's expression softened slightly. "One leaf doesn't undo years of putting work first, Nicholas." "No," he agreed, "but it's a start." He took a deep breath. "I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've decided to step back from day-to-day operations at Reed Enterprises. Walter's heart attack was a wake-up call, and now finding out about Lucas, I want to be more than just the CEO who missed his son's life." "What does stepping back mean exactly?" Amanda asked cautiously. "I'm promoting Allison to acting CEO while I take a 6-month sabbatical. I've already discussed it with the board." Nicholas leaned forward earnestly. "I'm not asking to disrupt your lives or challenge your relationship with Daniel. I just want a chance to be Lucas's father." Amanda was silent for a long moment. "Lucas has school and activities here in Boston. His friends, his routine." "I've been looking at properties in Boston," Nicholas replied. "Nothing permanent yet, but somewhere I could stay when visiting. Eventually, maybe somewhere I could live part-time. Amanda's eyebrows rose in surprise. You'd leave New York, your company? For my son? Yes. The certainty in Nicholas's voice surprised even him. I've achieved everything I wanted professionally, Amanda, but success means nothing if you have no one to share it with. The front door opened, interrupting their conversation. Daniel stepped into the living room, stopping short when he saw Nicholas. Sorry, I didn't realize you had company, he said, confusion evident on his friendly face. Amanda stood. Daniel, this is Nicholas Reed. Nicholas, this is Daniel Harris. Recognition dawned in Daniel's eyes as he extended his hand. Amanda's ex-husband. I've heard a lot about you. Nicholas shook his hand, noting the firm grip and direct gaze. All terrible, I'm sure. Daniel smiled slightly. Actually, no. Amanda doesn't speak ill of you, especially in front of Lucas. The response surprised Nicholas and raised his estimation of both Amanda and Daniel. Before he could reply, Lucas raced into the room. Daniel, look what I built, he exclaimed, holding up a half-constructed Lego spaceship. Wow, buddy, that's coming along great, Daniel replied, kneeling to examine it. He glanced up at Nicholas, then back at Lucas. Hey, Lucas, do you know who this is? Has your mom introduced you? Lucas nodded. That's Mr. Reed. He helped me pick up my leaves at the park. Daniel looked questioningly at Amanda, who nodded slightly. Daniel turned back to Lucas. Lucas, Mr. Reed is actually... he's your dad. Lucas's eyes widened as he looked between the adults. My dad, he repeated, his gaze settling on Nicholas. I thought my dad lived far away and couldn't visit. That was true, Amanda said gently. But now he's here, and he wants to get to know you. Lucas studied Nicholas with new intensity, clearly processing this revelation. Is that why we look alike? Daniel says I must look like my dad, because I don't look like Mommy. Yes, Nicholas answered, emotion making his voice rough. That's exactly why. Lucas approached Nicholas slowly, examining his face with careful scrutiny. Do you like dinosaurs too? Nicholas smiled, relief flooding him at the simple question. I don't know much about them, but I'd love to learn. I can teach you, Lucas offered seriously. I know all about them. I'd like that very much. Amanda and Daniel exchanged glances. Lucas, why don't you and Daniel go finish your Lego project while I finish talking with your dad? Amanda suggested. After they left, Amanda turned to Nicholas. This doesn't change things with Daniel. He's been a wonderful presence in Lucas's life. I understand that, Nicholas said sincerely. I'm not here to replace him or disrupt what you've built. I just want my own relationship with Lucas. Amanda nodded slowly. It would mean dividing your time between Boston and New York. Real commitment, Nicholas. School events, doctor's appointments, weekends, not just when it's convenient. I know, he replied. And I'm ready for that, whatever it takes. 6 months later, Nicholas stood in the kitchen of his newly purchased brownstone in Boston's Back Bay, just 15 minutes from Amanda's home. He was carefully assembling dinosaur-shaped sandwiches for Lucas's lunch during their weekend together. The refrigerator door was covered with Lucas's artwork, and toys were organized neatly in the living room. The doorbell rang, and Nicholas wiped his hands before answering. Amanda stood on the porch, Lucas bouncing excitedly beside her, overnight bag in hand. Dad, I lost another tooth, Lucas announced immediately, opening his mouth wide to display the gap. The tooth fairy is going to be busy tonight, Nicholas replied with a grin, still marveling at how quickly he'd adapted to being called Dad, instead of the more formal Mr. Reed of their early visits. We brought the permission slip for the museum field trip, Amanda said, handing him a form. It's next Friday. I know you have that board meeting. I'll move it, Nicholas replied without hesitation. This is more important, Amanda smiled, a genuine expression that had become more frequent in their co-parenting relationship. Daniel and I set a wedding date, she said. June 15th. Congratulations, Nicholas said sincerely. Over the months, he'd come to respect Daniel's place in Lucas's life, and the two men had established a surprisingly cordial relationship built around their shared affection for the boy. We'd like Lucas to be the ring-bearer, Amanda continued. And Daniel thought you might want to be there too, for Lucas. The invitation surprised Nicholas. I'd be honored. As Amanda turned to leave, she paused. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but you've become a good father, Nicholas. Lucas loves his weekends with you. It's the most important job I've ever had, Nicholas replied honestly. After waving goodbye to Amanda, Nicholas closed the door and turned to Lucas. So, what dinosaur adventure are we having today? Lucas grinned, revealing his missing tooth. Can we go to the park and collect leaves again? I'm making a whole nature book, and Dad, you won't believe all the different colors there are in the world. Nicholas smiled, his heart full. 5 years after their divorce, through an unexpected meeting in an emergency room, he'd discovered something far more valuable than any business deal, a second chance at the life that truly mattered.